we're live. Maybe we're live. And we're live on Friday night.
Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th. One of three this year.
Yeah.
Well, because of February has 28 days, so it's exactly 4 weeks long. Whenever you get a Friday the 13th in a February, March automatically has a Friday the 13th because of the 28 days, 7 weeks. It's like it's not even there. So when you get the Friday the 13th in a Sunday in a February, you automatically get it in March, and then it also turns out that you get one at the end of the year in like November. You pick up another Friday the 13th.
It's ironic that I brought in the month that is so unique to the year. It kind of fits.
The third one has to do also with it not being a leap year, so we don't get this all true has to happen when it's not a leap year, because if it's a leap year, then you got a Friday the 13th in February. You don't get it in March, and so that throws things off. But in non-leap year years, when you have a Friday the 13th in February, you get one again in March, and then you end up getting one again in November, so you get them 3 times in a year. I think it was a lot of people have pointed this out, but Neil deGrasse Tyson, he mentions it periodically, makes his little jokes about it. But Friday the 13th is you get that when you have the first falls on a Sunday. When the first falls on a Sunday, it turns out that month you have a Friday the 13th. So he made some sort of joke about that before. He's done something about the Thursday the 12th joke, because why pick on Friday the 13th? I mean, it was determined by it wasn't like Thursday was some other date and all of a sudden magically it's Friday the 13th. Oh my God, whatever made it Friday the 13th happened. It was established long before. So if you think something evil is going to happen, I don't know. It just feels kind of nonsensical. But people get. In fact, there used to be a thing called. It was popular late 1800s, early 1900s, called the 13 Club, and so it's not to be confused with the 27 Club, which maybe I'll talk about a little bit. I don't know. Have you heard of the 27 Club?
I don't know.
The 27 Club would be. I'll talk about that one first. That's the one where. The musicians who, when they're 27, they end up dying. So, Jim Morrison, Janis Joplin, and Jimi Hendrix.
Codename,
I don't know, was he 27? He might be the 27 Club. So you can look that up. The 27 Club. And then I guess maybe there's like one for comedians. Maybe there's like a 33 Club, because I think there's like Jim Belushi and John Candy and I don't know. Maybe I'm just making that one up. But the 13 Club, they were like a skeptical society. I don't know if it was a secret society. It wasn't really that secret, because we know a lot of people who were in it. In fact, like maybe 6 different presidents. All those presidents that were kind of around that time period were members of this 13 Club, and and they would kind of they would tempt fate. They would walk under ladders. They would let black cats cross in front of their path, and spill salt, and they would do things on a Friday the 13th. They would meet in groups of 13, sit at tables of 13 people on the 13th, on Friday the 13th. So they were called the 13 Club. So there's that going on. And if you can even say the word tridescophobia, I think that's the word. Maybe that's the people who have fear of the number 13. If you get sort of freaked out.
You're starting to make me so.
Yeah. But even today we see it. A lot of cities, you go to older buildings, even sometimes newer buildings, they won't have a 13th floor. They just, when they number the floors, they just miss out the 13. The hotels, I think, will do this sometimes, just because they just don't want to deal with the customers. It's not that the hotel believes anything. Just it's not worth dealing with people who are going to complain about it or talk about it, or so you say, I just leave the 13th floor off. So I mean, the 13th floor is actually there. It's just numbered 14. And then there's also the numbering of floors. Over in Europe, a lot of places, they don't start numbering floors of buildings until you get to above the lobby, the main level. Like the level that you enter in the street, mezzanine level or something overseas it's not called the first floor. It's like the mezzanine of the lobby, and then it starts what we call the second floor. They start calling the first floor. So you can have a building over there, and you think, oh, there's a 13th floor. Then you can move that same building to the U.S. somehow, but now it's a different floor. It's the 13th floor. So how do you deal with something like that? So so buildings that have a lot of floors, there's a 13th floor there, whether you label it 13 or not. And a lot of times it's just easy. Sometimes it's just easier to just give in to the fact that people are idiots and say, I'm just not going to put a 13th floor there because I don't want to deal with it. There was a story recently that made the news with politics because of that, and it was some senator or congressman or somebody trying to get a bill through, and they assigned numbers to the bills, and his was going to be Bill 666. And he ended up lobbying to get it changed. And then because of the way the numbering goes, when they got it changed, it like changed 718 or something like that. But part of why he wanted it changed is he didn't want to deal with people focusing on the 666 on his bill instead of the content of the bill. It's like, please don't make me have Bill 666. It's not that he just, although it was portrayed in the media, I think he was a Republican. And so, of course, it was portrayed in the public and the media, the liberal media, that side, the side that I like to read, actually, I find enjoyable. That he was afraid of Satan or something. That but when you kind of read it and you see what the guy was talking about, he wasn't afraid for himself that his bill was called 666 and that somehow the devil was going to come in, and he just did not want that to become the center of attention and the topic of conversation on his bill. He's like, I'd rather have a bill that's not numbered 666 because I'd rather talk about my bill. And I can understand that 100. It's the same as the guy, people with the floors. They don't want to deal with the 13th floor because there's people out here who are going to make a deal out of it. I don't know what the right thing to do is. I mean, if it was me, I would just suck it up and deal with it because I don't want to give into it. But I have to respect people who, and say, by all due respect, yeah, that's the way they think about it. That's a perfectly legitimate argument for them to have. And it's not, what am I going to say to that? I could tell them, you need the courage to just suck it up. But that's not my job to tell them that. I mean, they could tell that to me. But at least they're not saying, "Oh, we don't have a 13th floor because it's spooky," or I can't have Bill 666 because it's spooky. So because that I would have an issue with. But if they're legitimately trying to avoid, whatever's going on, then that's a reasonable argument. I mean, by the time we finish that debate, we wasted too much time talking about it, so things just to move on, and hopefully over time, more and more people will just use the numbers as they come up. But,
yeah, I mean,
let's see.
I've been.
When it comes to this number thing, I used to be like that. I used to be like, oh, Friday the 13th, 6666. You know what? I stopped giving it that power. It's like it's a number. It's not predetermined to be evil. And so it's just one of those things as to where it's amazing that can actually get involved into the running of our country. When you think about it, I mean, I do understand the concept is to, you don't want everybody to think about the number 666 around the bill. I do understand it. It's kind of sad that that's the way it is. But when you start taking the weight of what's happening, they're running our country and they're worrying about something that is, suggestive at best. It's really, that just baffles me, and I'm starting to feel better, and you can tell because I'm getting ornery, but the thing is that for something that here it is, you're running our country and you're worrying about a number system. I mean, that just is kind of out of whack. I would have thought that there would be some more serious thoughts to it, but I do understand why they're doing it. Doesn't mean I like it.
there. Uh,
Try again.
Hopefully that didn't go on too long. I was talking about China. China has number 4. Over there, like our 13th floor, we don't have buildings. Some buildings may not have a 14th floor, 13th floor. In China, some buildings don't have I think it's a 4th floor because the number 4 when you say it in, I think it was in Mandarin. They have a couple different languages over there. They speak a lot of different languages. Big country, they speak a lot of different languages. Mandarin and Cantonese being 2 big ones, and English. I think China's soon to become the biggest, have the largest English-speaking population in the world. Past the U.S. Right now, it's the U.S. 320 million English speakers in the U.S. Some number like that. The population of the U.S. Well, China, they're gonna have enough. They're gonna have more English speakers than us before long. But in Cantonese or Mandarin, it's probably Mandarin. The number 4 sounds like the word death. The number 4. So there it's kind of so different cultures. That was the point, and I'm not going to repeat the stories I was telling then. Look them up. But different cultures have different numbers that are considered either lucky or unlucky, and I find it kind of fun that numbers are like that, or that anything's like that. That people find certain things lucky or unlucky. But like as Shane was talking, I do get a little disturbed when people start rearranging their lives because of it. I mean, I think it's kind of a fun thing, like reading your horoscope. You kind of read it and you kind of chuckle and or you make jokes about Friday the 13th thing, but do you really believe it to the point that you're really going to be changing? I mean, like fundamentally changing what you do with your life. It's like, oh, come on, people. That's maybe that's are they smart? But smart people are like, because just again, it's the power of language. We talk about something language handshake, language handshake. The power of language, how language is so closely tied to our thoughts, the words that we use, the meaning of those words, and then the thoughts they trigger in our heads. So you hear a certain word, you say a certain word, you start thinking certain thoughts. That's hard to change. You can't. It's not just a matter of, oh well, I'm just not going to believe that anymore, because the power, that word still has power. It resonates with you on some level, and you have to take time to have it not mean. It's like falling in love with somebody, right? You don't fall out of love instantly. It's that same. You can't turn your emotions on and off. You can't turn on and off your emotional responses to words or to ideas or to situations. They don't just turn on and off. They have to become accustomed to new ones, and that's why it's another reason why it's very difficult to change people's perspective on things. But here we are, Random Thoughts with Random Excess, Random in Dutch. We're going to do every night here on YouTube, or depending on where you're watching this. Catch us on Twitter, Google+, Facebook. Facebook, we have the Facebook page, Random Thoughts with Random Excess. 30 likes, holding steady at 30. Post some articles there, a couple a day, 2, 3, 4, 5 a day. Articles that get me thinking or feeling a certain way, and then I like to I find them. You get a you can find out what kind of things are getting a reaction from me. Not that that's all that great or important, but it gives you a chance maybe to think about the things that make you react. What do you react to? What kind of things make you think or feel? And then try and explore that. Why does it make you think and feel that way? And that's kind of what I like to do here, is talk about some of the things that I think and feel about and why I do. And maybe I can get to deep down and do some therapy on the air, live, with you guys. And I can start adjusting that emotional connection I have to certain words, thoughts, ideas, so that maybe I can in some way improve my life. It's a journey. We're all on a journey. We're all going somewhere. But we got to make the most of the journey. It was a thought I had today about we so much want to shape the future that we want for ourselves, but the time is kind of, there's like 3 pieces of time. You got past, present, and future. And the thought was like, and maybe it's more elegantly stated on my on the Twitter account where I posted, but I can't adequately shape my future until I've learned from my past and I accept my present. And that kind of reminds me, I got to be grounded, got to be mindful, got to be here, got to accept where I am. If I can't accept where I am, then trying to shape my future is a futile effort. because I'm trying to I'm not connected to my present. My future needs to be connected to my present, and it needs to be informed by my past. I mean, I have to use the fact that I came from somewhere. I had some experiences. I've learned something. There should be some wisdom in there, and I have to use that idea to help guide me to the future that I want. I can't just sort of willy-nilly pick a future and say I want that. It's got to be somehow connected to the past through the present and then on to the future. There's got to be a connection going on there. So I don't know what that was connected to. I don't know why I was thinking that, but little random thoughts like that appear on the Twitter page. And sometimes they appear on the Facebook page too, but not as often. All right, so how was my day today? I've been struggling with sleep all week. Been out of control. Sleep until 3:30 in the afternoon every day. Yesterday, again, 3:30. Got up yesterday. We get up just in time for dinner. We eat dinner at 5. So I'm gonna get up at 3:30. It's almost dinner time. We do the show here at 10. So between 10 and 11, kind of do the show and then wrapping up. But I got to bed early. I forced myself to get to bed about midnight, even though I had just gotten up at 3:30. It's like, okay, I'm gonna go to bed and try and get some sleep. One, I had a doctor's appointment this morning at 9:15, and I had to be up the door by 8. And I did not want to stay up all night just to make sure that I made it to my doctor's appointment. I thought, because then it's just going to turn into this vicious, this cycle of my sleep being in the middle of the night. Did not want that anymore. I've been doing this for weeks and weeks and weeks. It's just getting worse, and it's getting more comfortable. It's like, I was up at 3:30 on Tuesday, up at 2:30 on Wednesday, up at 3:30 on Thursday. All of a sudden, it's like, man, this is starting to feel like a pattern. Getting up at 3:30, and I really can't do it on the weekends. We have, I got breakfast early in the morning that I got to be up for. I don't have to be up for it, I guess, but I need to be up for breakfast on the weekends. I should be up for breakfast. Should I not be using the word should? I don't know. But it needs to be under control. So I thought, well, I'll go to bed at midnight. I'll try to get as much sleep as I can. And I slept to about 3:45. So I got about 3 hours of sleep or so, 3.5 hours of sleep. So I've been up to 3:30 this morning. Except for that, I did take a 2-hour nap, or about 2 hours after dinner, so about 6:30 to 8:30. I took a little nap. But I figure it's helped me get back to this regular schedule. Maybe I can get to bed by 2 o'clock tonight, and then get up at.
It's good to have goals.
Yeah. I'm gonna try. But it's just been so tired, very down. Although this morning, I was even my doctor's appointment, therapy appointment this morning, talking to a therapist. This morning, actually, I felt awake and alert and clear-headed. It was like the first time in been about a week since I really kind of felt like, whoa, and I feel a little bit more. I don't know if it comes across on video or tape or whatever, but excuse me, I apologize for that. That was uncalled for, but it felt good. I feel a lot more.
Turn into a bar joke.
Yeah, I feel a lot more animated. I feel definitely more connected, a little bit happier, a little up.
I think we both have a little bit more energy. We're still not 100%.
Not 100%, but glimmers. That's what I was telling my therapist this morning. I said, this is the first time I've actually felt good in a couple of weeks. So and it wasn't situational necessarily. I can't put my finger on anything. It's just one of those things. You slide into a little bit of depression, but kept doing the show. Stayed sober. That's another important thing. 1,428 days. Every day, one day at a time.
That's amazing.
So not letting that, and then doing the show. This is tonight makes it. Tomorrow night we'll make it 56 shows. So tonight makes it 55 shows that we've done this. So continuing to do this, committing to doing this, and working out. So that was kind of like my little bit of day. Freezing cold out there this morning. Negative temperatures in Fahrenheit. For those of you out there who use Celsius, we were the negative Fahrenheit, so you can imagine what that was in Celsius. -12, -11 on the Celsius scale, but -4 on the Fahrenheit scale. But sunny day. And I wasn't able to take any pictures today because my phone hadn't been plugged in for a couple of days, and it had absolutely no juice this morning when I got up. So I don't leave my phone home plugged in. That's the way that goes. So that was kind of like my day today. Dutch, catch us up with you. What's going on over there? How's your day?
let's not go the week. The week's been rough. I woke up this morning and I was saying my prayers. I had a toothache, but here's the thing: it was a different tooth. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" I came to the realization that I'm just not healing like I normally would, and so I prayed on it a little bit, and I really didn't do a whole lot. I stayed inside. I had no interest of going outside. I didn't want to. Not only did I not want to get worse, I definitely just didn't want to be outside at all. I like the idea of 60 degrees inside. I was good with that. I laid down. I took naps. I did do some work. You know me. I can't go with the day to not work. So I did do some work on things, especially for JGF organization. I did some postings for them, talked to some people, and then I took a nap that I didn't think I was going to wake up from. I was just totally wiped out, and then came dinner, just like you. It's like, here I am. Okay. I had dinner, had a real good dinner. It filled me up a little bit. Then went back into my room and I started working, and I says, I'm starting to feel a little bit better. I could see that it didn't hurt to type. My hair still hurts, but it didn't hurt to type. The toothache is gone, so things are I think we're starting to come a little bit better. My voice is not hurting me as much as to where it was hurting my head, literally. And I fully expected to see you sleeping when I came out here. That's why I didn't even bring my laptop with me. I fully expected to see you in the bed, totally laid out, and I was going to ask, are we doing the show or are we not doing the show? I fully expected that. And you were wide awake. So, and I feel a little bit awake myself. So we got a little bit more energy than what we have. I want to say thank you to everybody who messaged me and wishing me well and get well soon and stuff like that. I very much appreciate that. It definitely helped me along. And hopefully, this weekend I plan on taking the weekend to just heal up. And hopefully by Monday we'll be able to hit the ground running again. But other than that, it's like it really hasn't been crazy like it normally is. I've been trying to shut down, trying to let myself heal, trying to let my higher power heal me, and that's where we're at. There is a race on tomorrow night, the return of NASCAR. And that is a good thing. That'll perk up my spirits a little bit, at least for a few laps.
Who's the favorite early on? Early favorite?
Oh, Gordon is running pretty good, and it's his last year. He's retiring after this year. So he's running pretty good, and it's going to be interesting. He ran pretty good last year, but the way that things went, it just didn't work out for him. But I have no doubt with it being his retired year, I'm sure he's going to be throwing everything at it. So we'll see what goes on. But it's early, and they haven't even practiced yet at all until today. So they just basically took the car off the trailer and put it on the track. And here we go. But but the Sprint Unlimited race is tomorrow. It's generally pretty exciting because they're all crazy right now because they haven't been on the track, so they want to run. I know what it's like. If you want them, you're going to play hard. That's what they want to do. So that'll make it easy, a little bit fun tomorrow, and we'll go from there. So it's getting better.
Come on.
There you go.
Ah.
You're on.
Okay, at the moment I'm on. Okay, I don't know. It's there we go. Um, Having trouble with the audio here a little bit, just because that's what I do. I struggle. Um, One of these things that really gets me going, um, only because I'm waiting for um, the world to catch up with the idea of the way information is distributed and shared, the way uh, be it movies, books, um, songs. In the past, distribution of stuff like that was very time consuming because it was a physical distribution. You had to carry things from one place to another, and there were physical copies. So you were limited by how many physical copies you could produce, how you could distribute those physical copies, your distribution network. So distribution of information was a pretty serious business. And what ended up happening is the distributors of the information ended up getting a lot of power. You would sign with a record label, and the record label would control all the profits. Essentially, you would, or you might.
Oh, Dr. Dre.
Yeah, or in the movie in the movie studio business, there was a the movie studios basically controlled it. You would sign a contract as a movie star with a movie studio for 5, 7 years, 10 years, whatever, and then you would just make movies for them on some sort of salary. Maybe you might get a bonus for each movie you made, maybe not. Essentially, you just earn this. But they were distributing the movies. They made them and and distributed them, so they controlled the making, and so that started. And they controlled the theaters. They controlled everything, but it was the distribution that was the stranglehold. And different companies have done this throughout time. In fact, I was reading. It was a little reminder here. How did Hollywood end up out in California? Early on, movie making, kind of started over in France. I think is where the first motion pictures were sort of invented. And then Edison came up with his kinescope stuff, and they started making movies here in the U.S. In Florida, I think. Originally, but on the East Coast definitely. But there was a lot of problems with one. Edison wanted to get paid when you were using his camera technology, and the people who were making movies didn't want to have to deal with that. So that was one reason they went out to California. We're gonna go 3,000 miles away. You got issues. You got to come out here and one, you got to prove that we're using your cameras technology to make movies. Because you can't really tell from the film, especially at that time, what camera was used. At least given the technology at the time, really about the only way that you could tell what camera somebody was using is you had to watch them when they were making the movie to a camera. So it was also common to cover your cameras a lot of times with blankets and stuff, so that people couldn't see what cameras were being used to. What camera? It's a variation of but there was other reasons where you want to cover the camera too. Back in those days, you want to block a lot of light so that you're only seeing the light from where you're. Part of the thing there was you didn't want people to see what cameras you were using, so you could be pirating. But Hollywood's definitely in on it. But nowadays, of course, Hollywood's a big player behind going after internet pirates, because nowadays distributing artistic content or this kind of content, intellectual property, digitally is essentially it's free, it's instantaneous, it's worldwide. As an artist, I can make a movie, I can make a song, I can write a book, and then I can distribute it worldwide, as many copies as I need to, by pressing a button on the internet on my computer, and it goes out on the internet. I don't have to get certain number of printed copies. I don't have to just get those printed copies to the bookstores. I don't have to try and get them to the customers. I just put them on the internet, and then people can find them from the comfort of their own homes, from their offices. So it's changed the way information is. The internet has changed the way information is distributed, and because of that, it's changed the whole game in my mind. About the way we think of intellectual property and what protections really have to exist. We don't need to protect the distributors anymore. What we need to do is protect the content creators, because they're the ones that now they can reap all the benefits, and any money that's to be made needs to come to the content creators, and because we've sort of eliminated this whole distribution need, this big block of just fixed costs or this horrible cost of distribution, that's gone. That should be lowering the prices of things. So prices should be coming down for entertainment. They're not really. Distributors don't want to give up. Who's going to give up their own company, right? Why would these big distributors go away? They have no reason to. So of course they're fighting. They're rich. They have a lot of money. So they're like involved here. And there's this. This has been the news for a couple of years. This Trans-Pacific Partnership, the TPP, and one of it is it's a trade agreement with the other side of the Atlantic, transatlantic. There you go, Trans-Pacific, the other side of the Pacific. But it's to try and nail down some of these things. But a lot of the negotiations is being done in secret, and which is a lot of times that's good because we don't need necessarily to see a lot of the negotiation, but we do need to see what needs to be public is the agreements that they come to. So that's another part where the secrecy, a lot of stuff is being kept secret even after they're agreeing to things. It's like, well, when you guys find some agreement, we need to make that public, I would think. And they're like, no, eventually we make public. And we may eventually never know about it. But Hollywood is really big in this, and one of the things they want is prison time for file sharing, and this is just this feeds into my whole, I like to talk about, and I'll drag Shane in on this too, but this whole treating prison criminal justice as a business model. First of all, it's a profit center. It's a way to make money. We have private prisons. There's private, after you get out of prison, that whole probation and stuff is all being privatized. It's just making a business out of putting people in jail and keeping them in jail, which has got a lot of problems. One of the problems I think is really interesting, and you think about it from a business point, it makes sense, which is exactly why this is the wrong thing to do. But if I'm running a private prison, the one thing I don't want is violent people in my prisons. Violent people in your prisons are expensive. You have to have extra guards. You have to watch them. You want non-violent people in your prisons. So you want to make sure that you're sending non-violent people to prison and not violent people to prison. And so here, this fits right in with the private prison model. The record labels, the movie studios, they want to send people to prison for using things like the Pirate Bay, for sharing movies over the internet. They want to send you to prison. And the private prison industries now, of course, they're on board with this because sure, give me more nonviolent people. I want all the nonviolent people you can give me because I can charge a lot of money for them, and they don't cost me that much because they're going to come in, they're going to be quiet, they're going to take their showers, they're going to eat their meals, and they're not going to be causing me any problems. They're very low maintenance, and because it fits in with the business model, and we're preserving an ancient, outdated business model with the distribution of intellectual property, and then we're also supporting this weird business model of private prisons and just the prison criminal justice system in general, the way everything's being sort of privatized and treated like, it's just, it's out of control. So that's just a rant that's not really related to, I guess it doesn't have to be related, but that was just something that I see whenever I see these stories about prisons and the way prison populations are growing and what kind of people are being sent to prison. It just makes me it really gets me going because again, it's hard to get the changes that we need to stop this from happening because there's so much money behind it. And you're getting money here from the record studios, but you're also getting it from the movie studios and record labels. But you're also getting the money from the private prison and everybody who supports prison stuff. And politicians don't want to be soft on crime, so they support the prison lobby. And so it's like, oh, come on. We have to stop this nonsense. We have to, it's build it from the ground up. We have to stop what we're doing and do what we're doing completely different. It's not a matter of a little Band-Aid change. I mean, it's really we have to fundamentally change the way we are treating prisons and what kind of people we want to send to prison and why we're sending them to prison. So legalization of drugs is a step in the right direction. Certain drugs, maybe all drugs, I don't know, somewhere in there. There's been countries that have been having some good success with legalizing drugs. But taking smart approaches. There we go. Portugal is the country I'm really thinking of, legalized drugs, and then they all of a sudden it's like, well, not that it's a perfect solve their problem, but their drug use is down 50% since they legalized drugs. Because one, it brings it out in the open.
What might understand if I'm putting millions and millions of dollars
Right
in,
now?
it should be, yeah. If I am putting in millions and millions of dollars into a product to be seen or whatever, I want to be able to get my return back, and the idea is to get as much as you can out of it. Well, how much is enough? It's like, if you go ahead and you put in $10 million to make a movie, I'm thinking that you want at least $10 million back, and I can appreciate that. The one thing that gets me is that when it comes to the movies, and we're shutting everything down?
Something happened. I left, right?
You're gone.
Although I could still, because that's.
Can you hear me? I mean, I'm.
So what here is like showing this one here, the main one.
Okay.
Shows your mic off, but I can see your mic working on the other one.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I
think we're still recording. I just don't know where this person is.
My
I'll try to
thing.
reload it.
My thing is that I don't believe anything that's online. I don't believe that there's anything online that is keeping people from going to the movies. I don't think it is. I really don't. Not a good movie. So maybe you might want to make some good movies as opposed to the ones that you're sending out there. Because I personally have gone to movies. I've gone and seen good movies. I plan on going out and seeing The American Sniper. It's like that's something that I want because I believe it's a good movie. If you're going to sit there and you're going to put garbage out there, no, I'm not going to go see it. I can wait for that to be online. But here's the thing. I could have waited for it to be on cable, on HBO, years ago. That's the way it used to be, is that after about, say, 8 months to a year, after the movie came out, it was on cable. It was on HBO or whatever movie, Showtime at the time. So what's the difference? And then when you're telling me about music, here's the thing: the music that was made that got the people to buy your album was on the radio. And here's news for all the musicians that are out there. If it wasn't for the fans hearing it on the radio, they wouldn't have bought your album in the first place because they would have had no idea about it. And here's another news flash. The majority of the songs that are on an album, in a general sense, are not as good as the one that is promoted on the radio. So that's for free. I've taped many different songs off of the radio. When I was a kid. What's the difference? It's like, is it going to keep me from going and buying an album? No, it's not for me. Will it do it for others? And I think, what's going on? Yeah, we're totally screwed up. When you left, everything stopped, I think.
No, I don't think.
Because now I heard myself when you came in. Yeah. But anyways,
was back on.
Okay.
But now it's off because it comes in hot.
But anyways, to stop this rant, the thing is that I understand what it is that they're saying. Just don't blow it out of proportion. And does it require prison sentences? Are you out of your freaking mind? Seriously? These things were available to the public before now. Before the internet. You know what I mean? So it's like, let's get a grip. I understand that you're, but in the meantime, so what's the real difference? Are they really not making money?
Well, that's the thing is the most pirated stuff is also making the most money. People are
Exactly.
because a lot of people pirate stuff, but they still see it in the theater. They still buy the DVDs.
Right.
They still buy the. They're still throwing money at you. They're just pirating because they want it. They want a little copy, or they want it when they want it. But when the DVD comes out, they're going to buy that. They still want to go see it in the theater. But movies don't open at the same time when they want. This day and age, there's no reason why a movie can't open worldwide all at once.
Right, and just like and like the Demi Lovato song, right? I would have never heard a Demi Lovato song in my life. I just wouldn't. You want to know where I heard it from? YouTube. You want to know why I would buy it? Because of YouTube. You know what I mean? Wasn't because I heard it on the radio. Wasn't because I was following Demi Lovato. It was because I saw it on a video on YouTube. And now would I buy it? Yes, I would. So really, it's like it needs to get a grip. And I'm sorry for the rant. I'm starting to feel better, so it's going to happen.
Well, it was a perfectly timed rant because I had trouble. My internet went out on one. Now I have two computers going here, so that was one thing. But the internet went out, so I don't know what. We don't know exactly what did to the video. Hopefully everything worked out fine here, but lost my internet, so on one computer, but not on the other. And I don't know why that happened, but hey, that's one of those things. Okay, so that's that stuff, but this whole private prison stuff. I saw this other article today. This is one I thought was an interesting article, and maybe we'll just be tip of the iceberg or something to talk about a couple different times. Try to do these studies to. One thing you do with scientific studies is you want to establish either very, very strong correlations, or preferably you want to try and establish causations between events, where a lot of times things could be coincidence, or the correlations could be tenuous at best, or there could be a causation, but you're not real sure what the cause is, but it could just be a correlation because there's an unseen cause. An example I like to mention, which I think it just illustrates this. If you understand this one example, then it does make sense. And it's the number of people drowning, the drowning rates versus the temperature outside. And it turns out that not temperature outside. I'm sorry, drowning rates versus ice cream sales. When you sort of map those two together, you see, when there's a lot of ice cream sales, people are drowning a lot. So that must mean that ice cream sales cause people to drown.
Nobody is drowning outside right now.
Yeah, there's nobody drowning outside, and which is exactly what the reason is because there's a third cause. In this case, there's a correlation. There's a real correlation between those two events. They go up and down together because there's another cause. There's sort of the unseen cause, the temperature. When it's hot outside, people go swimming. So when people are swimming, they drown. But also when it's hot outside, people buy ice cream. So ice cream sales go up. So that it's not a surprise that ice cream sales and drownings track together. And they track together not out of coincidence, but because there's this other cause. There are other things, and Google has an app, a Google app, basically. You can go to their website, and where you can track statistical correlations, where things that are just random correlations, because when you track like millions of things, there's going to be only so many different shapes your graph can have. So there's going to be a lot of graphs that sort of have the same shape, and they say, oh look, these two events are correlated, when that's just complete coincidence. So there's a lot of times it's coincidence. Sometimes it's a strong correlation because there's a third cause that's out there that's sort of driving both correlations. But sometimes in science there's the two things are correlated strongly because one is causing the other, but sometimes it's not always obvious which one is the cause and which one is the result. So that's a thing to sort of think about. And the reason I mention all that is this feeds in a lot of times into stereotypes, and especially stereotypes of intelligence. We think of and it was a discussion actually I was reading / involved with a little bit today on the internet, was what makes you when you meet a person? How do you determine if they're smart or not when you meet them? Or here's a description of a person. What in a description of a person would lead you to believe that they're smart or not? So that's so we're just tied basically to intelligence. How do we measure intelligence? What do we think of when we think of an intelligent person? And there's some coming up funny, some interesting ones that people think of, but there's some that are definitely out there, and it may be very much stereotypical, or would be things like related to race. People think, oh, Asians are very smart, and then African Americans are not so smart, and then white people are sort of in the middle. So there's this very stereotypical curve of something like that, and I'm saying, well, what is the correlation there? I mean, is it that being African American makes you less intelligent, or certainly it can't be that less intelligent makes you African American. I mean, that wouldn't make any sense. Or is there another cause that's out there that's sort of working in between them, or is it just coincidence that hey, you do with some measurements, sometimes some things are going to be just measured different than other things, and it's not really something to get upset or worried about. So that's a thing that happens a lot. It turns out with a lot of these, especially the racial stereotypes, whether it comes to things like murder rates, or just putting people, prison rates, or in this case of like IQ tests, or just any kind of mental type, intelligence type testing. A lot of times, if you don't adjust for poverty in these things, it turns out that you get skewed results with that after you adjust for poverty. And a lot of times it's not just the poverty of the person that you're, but maybe it's like sort of like the poverty of the family. What was the education poverty level of the parents and the grandparents? Because it takes a couple of generations a lot of times to sort things out. And if you sort of adjust for a lot of those things, you find out that things like race just kind of go out the window. But one thing that happens is this poverty thing. This was an interesting study here where they were basically saying that poverty can really lower your IQ, and here they're talking about like 13 points, which is like a full standard deviation, which is a big number. I mean, it's they said they're using 13 points here, but whether or not you believe that IQ measures anything, a difference of 13 IQ points, that does measure something. I don't know what it measures. One thing that IQ measures is your ability to score on IQ tests. That's the best thing that it does. So it does. It's not a perfect indicator of intelligence, but if you were taking IQ tests and you notice that your test scores went down by 13 points, or you notice that your test scores went up by 13 points, that would be an indication of something. And one of the things that they were finding out here that strongly correlates with this is poverty, and it was an interesting study. And what they were doing is they were saying, how can it affect complex problem solving? And how do we even test that? And they actually did a couple of different tests. And they had these interesting results. And one of them was a sort of a mall survey test, where you stop people in the mall and you ask them some questions. And then an important part of it is you get some biographical data, how much money they make. And I think in this study they used like $70,000 for family income was sort of the cutoff, and so they called people above that rich, people below that poor. That was just, there were two categories. Were you over 70,000? Were you under 70,000? This is in America, arbitrary number. You can almost do it anywhere, but I think they were going by some sort of, that's the median house income in the U.S. For a family of four or something is 70,000. So whatever they were doing. But they asked people a couple different questions and tested their problem-solving ability. And I'm not exactly sure how they did this, but it involved, one, getting them, explaining that they're in a situation where they have to get their car fixed, and it's going to cost $150 to get your car fixed. And then while you're thinking about that, I need you to solve this complex problem. And whatever it was, and again they had the scientists, they spent a lot of time doing this, so it was, I'm going to make it sound really stupid when I explain it, but they did something a little bit more complicated, so it was a little bit more realistic. But basically, they had a person that said, "You're in this situation, you have to get your car fixed. It costs $150, and also here's this complex problem I want you to solve." And then they see how well people solve the problem, and then they got people divided into rich people and poor people. And then they take the same sort of situation. They say, you can get your car fixed. It's going to cost $1,500 to get your car fixed. And here's this complex problem I want you to solve over here. At the $150 problem, $150 thoughts in their head, both populations scored about the same. There was no significant difference between their performance on the complex problem, whatever they had to solve. But when they did the $1,500, so it was actually like a significant amount of money for poor people. I mean, not that $150 is nothing, but it's $150. But $1,500 now becomes a significant amount of money. And when poor people were thinking about significant amount of money problem, they did much worse on solving the complex problem. Which, and that's kind of how we measure intelligence, is like your ability to, and that's one of the measures, is your ability to sort of process complex situations. Solve a complex problem, understand a complex situation, your ability to sort of focus and tell what's important, what's not important, those kind of things. And there was significant impact on it when you have to worry about money, which is interesting. So it's showing that here the poverty, just the fact that you're poor, it has this impact. So this was done in sort of the U.S. Version of it. So well, let's look at it another way and see what kind of result we get on it. And what they did, they went over, I think, to Africa, maybe Bangladesh, maybe Asia or something. But they went to some place where I think it was sugarcane farmers, where these people sort of live their lives sort of feast and famine, where the sugarcane harvest lasts a couple of months, and basically you earn all these sugarcane farmers, basically you earn all your money for the year in those couple of months, and then you have like all your money for the year, and then you got to live off that money all year long until the next harvest. So right after the harvest, you are flush with cash, and right before the harvest, you're not. And so they basically did the same experiment, but not separating the people into two different populations of rich and poor, but testing the same person twice, once when they were flush with cash, and once when they were not flush with cash, when they were struggling financially. And they put them through the same sort of test with solving complex problems, and they found the same correlation between the difference between when solving problems when you have money versus the same person now solving problems when they're poor. Much different. There's a big difference. So again, showing how, pointing to that the stress of poverty can affect IQ. Now think about the racial stuff I was talking about before. We think, black people aren't very smart. Well, when you look at poverty statistics in the U.S., African Americans tend to be shifted over in the poverty thing. They're just, their income bell curve is shifted to the right, or is it to the left? Either way, but they're shifted more to the poverty end, which means there's more of them in poverty than say in white people, and just that fact alone can account for any difference between perceived intelligence. That it's got nothing to do with race, that it's got everything to do with poverty. Certainly a significant amount to do with poverty. I mean, there's other things that poverty can be a very complex problem too. It's not just how much money you make, but there is a certain amount of sort of historical wealth. Like, do you own a home? Does your family own a home? Did a lot of poor people own homes. A lot of poor white people, when I say poor, they don't have to be dirt poor, but people who don't have, but they'll have homes because they'll have inherited a home in the family. We have family property. My grandfather had some land, he built a house, my dad had the house, and now the house passed to me. I own a house. I don't have a big job. I'm very $20,000 a year job, whatever, but I own a house. Whereas that black person who makes maybe even $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 doesn't own a house because there's no property ever in their family. No one's ever owned any property, so there's never any property to hand down. So that's another thing. You have this sort of generational wealth that sort of just trickles, that sort of gets passed down generation, so that you yourself you don't have to make a lot of money, but you still have some assets, you have some wealth. And one of the stats I saw was for African American family making $60,000 has the same have the same assets as a white family making $20,000. So that when you think about poverty being related to assets that that basically even at the 60,000 level income for a black family, you're at the same poverty level as a family, white family making 20,000. Just because of the
Is that because of the number of children?
No, that's it's more just never been able to get to own property, and just never owning property wasn't a priority. Weren't able to do it. Nobody would sell you property. You're forced to be a renter, so you don't get a chance to sort of accumulate any wealth to pass on. Because your grandfather got land when property was cheap, was able to build the house when building it was cheap, so was able to get a house in the family, and maybe even got a couple of houses and started renting to poor black families. There's these things that happen, and the wealth sort of carries over from generation to generation. So, but when you start seeing things normalized for pressure for poverty, like this study was showing, when you normalize for poverty, you start seeing the differences almost always go completely away. I mean, there's a lot of noise. So, and there might still be some residual differences, and you have to try and tease those out. But this is like teasing out just one thing, is poverty. The same sort of thing shows up with when you look at teenage pregnancy rates and incarceration rates. Once you normalize for poverty, you start seeing any sort of racial component vanishes. That it's like, that it wasn't the race, it was just the poverty. But it's just that because there's such a disparity in the poverty levels for the different races, that we just see the race as the difference, and we don't realize that it's this other thing behind here. It's the poverty. There's certain races that are just in this certain poverty level, and then that has a thing. And then people could argue that, the poverty thing doesn't really make a difference. Well, this study shows that the poverty thing does, because like I said, they did the experiment a couple different ways. One was doing a sort of direct comparison between rich people and poor people, and they saw the difference once the financial pressure was applied. At the low financial pressure, we didn't see a difference. We didn't start seeing the difference until there was strong financial pressure. The $1,500 car repair, that started driving the difference between the two. And then they did the same study. That was a sort of a head-to-head comparison, where they said, okay, let's look at this real financial pressure again by looking at the same people, and we picked a population where they have a feast and famine existence, where we can look at them during time periods when they're flush with cash, and the same people when they're struggling, when they're at the end of the year when they have no money, and seeing the difference in their ability to sort of take these tests. And and so you have to be careful about, they even be careful here. Talk about mental capacity, and because how does it? Intelligence is one of these things. Nobody knows what intelligence is. There is no clean definition of what makes somebody intelligent and does it make somebody else not intelligent. I think it's whether Einstein said this quote or not. And again, it doesn't really matter, but it's attributed to Einstein, so we give it a little extra credit. But it's a true sounding statement, and it does seem true. But it's like if you measure intelligence by climbing a tree, you can make a fish feel stupid or something. Even a fish will feel stupid if you rate intelligence by ability to climb a tree. The point being that whatever you think intelligence is, you're automatically classifying somebody else as stupid who can't do that thing that you think makes intelligent.
You're compartmentalizing.
Yeah, because there's all kinds of intelligence. But certainly being able to process complex information, whatever that means, because that could be musical information. I mean, orchestrating conducting an orchestra. Maybe you're doing that's a complex thing. There's a certain amount of intelligence there. So you have to be careful how you really do this, but be able to process sort of these complex situations, to see the connections that are important, and to dismiss the connections that are not important. Those are types of things that do rate intelligence. And we see that it's interesting. This is a good study though. I like this because the way they did this study a couple different ways. So there's the head-to-head comparison between two different populations, and also did the same study where it was cyclical, where people who go through feast and famine, that their performance actually does change based on how flush with cash they are. So it's showing that the poverty level is most likely the driver, because if it was something innate, the person who goes feast and famine, that shouldn't vary then, because it's the same person, but because their results are changing, then it's not innate in the person, and then so it could be the poverty level. It might be seasonal. Who knows what it is? Well, the other study was done sort of head to head, so it's not seasonal because it's the same. They're being tested at the same time. The thing that's different there is the poverty. So they're sort of the variable that's being manipulated there is the poverty level, and they're seeing the difference in the test. So that points very strongly to. But again, this is not a solving a math problem, and this is not a lab test where it's careful, exact measurements. So there's always room for discussion, debate.
It also needs
I mean, in my opinion, I did not read this particular article, but it also needs to go over an extended period of time, because to say when I saw this poverty saps mental capacity to deal with complex tasks, well, no kidding. You know what I mean? It's like if you're sitting there and you're occupied by something that's overwhelming, the brain tunnel visions on what it is that's overwhelming you automatically. It's a survival instinct. So of course it's going to. I mean, your focus. If you're going to be half focused on this complex problem, then the answer is obvious. Going to be you're going to have a lesser score than what most are. But I challenge them to do it over a long period of time, to where those who are poverty-stricken or poverty inundated, there are plenty of people who come out of poverty that are very, very intelligent.
Oh yeah.
Because what they do is that they're stronger, because they've become stronger and they've been able to find a way to be able to focus. Now I'm not saying it's the majority, but what I am saying is that there's a bigger number than what anybody would give it credit for. You know what I mean? And I think that's one thing that bothers me. Me and stigma. I don't like it. And so when you start talking about how this particular general population is not going to be as intelligent as another one. If you really want to talk about intelligence to people who have money, we could go there.
I think I don't want. I guess we need to be careful here with what they're talking about and doing here. Is this is not meant to stigmatize people who are poor. It's really to say that that when you're trying to address things like education and opportunity, we have to consider poverty. We have to create economic opportunity for everyone so that we can get the most out of everyone.
Oh, and I totally agree.
That when we keep people in poverty, then we are making it more and more difficult for those geniuses to get out of poverty. People, and that if we can get the people out of poverty, we can it's like a free intellectual resource right there. All we got to do is lift these people out of poverty, and all of a sudden we start benefiting from their genius. It's just that the genius is there. It's just suppressed because of the poverty. That's nothing. This is not saying that because you're poor, you're not smart. It's kind of saying when you're poor or poverty-stricken, like you were alluding to, it impedes your ability to express that intelligence, and then that what ends up doing now, if you're unable to express it to your full ability, then you don't do as well in school. And because you're not doing as well in school, you can't get into the good college. And because you can't get into the good college, you can't get the good job. And because you can't get the good job, you're not on the fast track to get to be, to be. And then the cycle continues. You can't. It makes it much more difficult to get out of that poverty loop. But if we can say, let's not tell the people who are poor it's your job to get out of poverty. Let's, as a society, say, hey, let's address poverty because it benefits all of us if we can lift everybody out of poverty, because then the people who are coming out of poverty, now they can contribute to society to their full potential, and then we can all reap the benefits, and then that just lifts everybody even higher. I mean, it's either a golden spiral or it's a golden cycle or a vicious cycle. It's depending on which way you want to go. And we spend a lot of time in this country blaming poor people and telling them, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and and a lot of times it's like, it's a lot easier said than done. I mean, it gets related to sort of like a lot of mental health issues and maybe some addiction things. That when you got other things on your mind, you know, you're asking, you're asking a lot for somebody to tell them, "Oh, pull yourself up by your bootstraps." Like, oh, that's easy for you. It's the whole thing about privilege, right? You know, you got to check your privilege when you're pointing at somebody else and you want them to do something. You got to make sure that you understand fully what the situation is they're in, not how you would handle the situation given your condition. You know, given my situation, here's how I would deal with it. You know, well, that's fine and dandy for you, but you ain't me. You know, put yourself in my position and then tell me how to handle it. And so studies like this kind of speak to that it's like, you know, it's not meant to point to poor people and say, oh, poor people are dumb. But no, what it's saying is that because as a society we're keeping you poor, because we're keeping you in that poverty level, that we as a society are responsible for suppressing your ability to fully express your own genius. You know, we have to take ownership of that as a society, and it's up to us to come up with ways to lift people out of poverty. If it's not just giving them food stamps and paying their rent, it's actually doing some real things to get them out of poverty. Part of that is to make sure they're getting food stamps and their rent is paid, and you know, it's the basic needs are being met. If your basic needs aren't being met, you know, you got to think about that all the time. You're constantly in survival mode, so now you're stressed all the time. And you know, so but I need to slow down here because we're already over an hour. It's after 11.
We're on a roll.
So
We're starting to feel better.
We're starting to come back a little bit. So that was Friday night. But that's something, and this is definitely a topic I want to talk about a little bit more because I think it's a great topic. But I'll just wrap it up real quick with the Twitter update. Tweet at us at the RTWRE. That's Random Thoughts with Random Excess. Hit us up with that hashtag. We can track it down and see your tweet. Also, if you want to tweet at us, it's using at Random Excess. At Random Excess, we'll tweet right at us. I prefer to use the hashtag. It's a lot easier for us to find things. But you know, tweet right at us. Everybody can see that. Twitter update. Where are we at? It was 9:49 yesterday.
Oh no.
9:50. Back to the 9:50. Yay! Calls to the feedback line 15189-666-175. That's the unlucky feedback line number. That's good in the U.S. and Canada. 15189-666-175. 3 to 4 during the week, 3 to 5 on the weekends, 11 to midnight after the show. In fact, phone lines are open now. Need to get off the air so we can get to the phone lines. Man, the phone lines. I hear them ringing. Need to get off the air. We'll be back tomorrow night with episode 6.6. Finishing up this week. Finishing up episode 56 episodes in a row we'll have done after tomorrow. I think it's 56. Yeah, that sounds right. And we will talk to you later. Good night, Shane. Thank you for joining us, everybody. And thank you, Shane.
Good night, folks.
And shorter show tomorrow, I'm sure.